Good morning, my YouTube viewers. It is Crystal here. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering Lesson 9 of my free intermediate Excel course. So, Lesson 9 covers intermediate charting and visualization techniques in Excel. So, it takes you up to the next level of making charts beyond basic. And so you should have already watched my free basic Excel course. So that would teach you the basics of Excel. And you should already have watched my previous 9 lessons in the intermediate Excel course. So that would give you some more information. But what I did was, because in Lesson 10, I was using information that I had in Lesson 8. So I put Lesson 10 before Lesson 9 because I wanted to do Lesson 8, and then the information in Lesson 8 was put in Lesson 10. And so now I made Lesson 9 the final lesson. So basically, I know it's a little bit out of order, but I thought it would be better for the learner to learn it that way. So you should already have learned how to get into Excel, how to open a file, create a new file, edit a file, close a file, and rename a file, and move a file around. So we're not going to discuss that in this lesson. What we're going to do is we're going to go directly into Excel. So here we are in Lesson Excel, and if you've watched my previous lessons, you'll know that in Lesson 5, I created a project timeline to show the learner how to do that. And so normally I don't do timelines because I'm just a one-man band. A timeline is good if you have a group of people working on a project. And you can also do a timeline if you are the only one who is working on the project. If you just want to keep a record of the dates that you completed a certain task. So what I decided to do was, since I went ahead and made this timeline, then what I was going to do is go ahead and carry on with the timeline for the duration of the course. So today is the 22nd. So as soon as I complete this video and put it on the internet, the lesson will be completed and the course will be completed as well. And you can see we've got a visual representation of the timeline, which you can see right here. So now we're going to go over to Lesson 9 and talk about Lesson 9. So Lesson 9, we're going to be talking about combination charts. So a combination chart allows the user to display 2 or more chart types in a single chart, making it easier to compare different data series with varying scales. So when you have a combination chart, you're probably going to need a secondary axis. So a secondary axis allows the user to plot data series with different scales on the same chart, making it easier to compare the values that vary widely. You're also going to want your chart to be dynamic. So dynamic charts automatically update when data changes using tables, ranges, and interactive controls. You can also format the numbers. So you can format the numbers using Format in the Home tab. You can, if you want to, save the chart as a picture. If you want to take the chart and move it into, like, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document. And you can also change the color of the data labels in the chart. So what we're going to do is I've made up this fake data. That we're going to, I've got 2 years of data, 2 years of monthly data from January 25 to December 26. And then I put some fake sales data in there. I put some fake cost data in there. And I put some, and then I calculated the profit as being the sales data minus the cost, and that's going to give you your net profit, really, because it's going to give you your net profit. And the reason why it's going to give you your net profit, because you quite often have to pay tax and all kinds of stuff as well. So you have something called gross profit and net profit. So it's going to be the net profit because the taxes and everything else haven't been subtracted from the net profit. And then you're going to take your profit margin. So your net profit is B2 minus C2, which is the sales minus the cost, and the profit margin is D2 divided by B2. So it's going to be the net profit divided by the sales. And then so what we do is we're going to take this profit margin and we're going to format it into percentages. So we're going to highlight the cells that we want to format. And then we're going to double click on it and format cells. And it's going to be number. You're going to click on to percentage. I wanted 2 decimal places. And you're going to click on OK. And then you also can format the money, the pound signs. And you're going to click onto that. And you're going to go format cells. So you're going to say accounting. I'm going to say 0 decimal places and then none and click OK. So we formatted our sales cost to net profit, and then we've also formatted our profit margin. Another thing that you can do if you want a little sparkline, you can insert a sparkline into the end of the row or the end of the column. So I inserted this sparkline at the end of the column. So see if I can find. So you go to the Insert tab, and then you go to Line, and then you can choose the data range that you want. So in this instance, it's going to be A2 to A25, and you're going to get a sparkline. And when you press enter, you're going to get a sparkline. And then what you can do is you can copy this over to the other cells. And then so that's a great way if you want a sparkline, if you want to see how the values are increasing or decreasing in a tiny little cell, you can input a sparkline in there if you want. And then so what we're going to do is I'm just going to move this over here to the very end. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the, we're going to highlight column A, and then we're going to highlight column B, which is your cells. And you're going to press on Control, and then when you press on your Control, you highlight column E. So basically, the cells that are going to be, the columns that are going to be in the chart that I make are going to be column A, B, and E. So that's how you can highlight you can include columns that are not side by side. And you're going to go to the Insert tab. We're going to go to Recommended Charts, but we already want a combo chart. We know we want a combo chart. So you come over here to Combo, and then you get different types of combo charts that you can make. So we're going to go ahead and create this kind of combo chart, and you're going to have a line on a secondary axis. And then you can also change the colors. So your column cluster is your primary axis and your line is your secondary axis. So we're going to click OK. So we've got this chart that we've made, and then what you can do is you can change the title. So there's our title, Combo Chart Sales v Profit Margin. So you see that you've got the bar chart as the primary axis and the profit margin as the secondary axis. So you've got one column here for your sales, and you've got one column on the right-hand side for your profit margin. And you can also change the color. So we're going to change the color on this. So we're going to make this like a really nice blue. And then we're going to take the profit margin and we're going to change the color on that to a really nice green. So now you're going to have like blue is your sales and green is your profit margin. And then another thing that you can do is, since I've got two charts here, I did the one chart last night when I was preparing for this lesson, but I wanted to do the second chart to show you how to do it. This is also a dynamic chart. So let's say June 25. We're going to change the net June 25 to 110,000. And so you can see that that made the profit margin 40.91%. And you can see how the profit margin changed, the net profit changed, and it changed on the chart as well. It also changed on the second chart that we already made. But I'm going to make it to what it originally had been and change it back. So now you've got a dynamic chart. So you've got a dynamic chart. So if the values and the data change, the chart's going to change. And another thing that you can do is you can save it as a picture. And then so what you can do is you can save it as a picture in whatever folder you want to save it in. And then so you can use that picture in other places. You can use it in a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document. So basically, that's how we do it. I'm going to go ahead, and since I don't need two charts that say the same thing, I'm just going to delete it. So we don't need two charts with exactly the same information. So that's it. That's how you create an intermediate chart and visualization in Excel. So you have a primary axis and a secondary axis, and it is a dynamic chart. So if you change the data, if you change the information in the data that you're charting, It will also change the formulas, and it will change in the chart. And if you want to, you can also have a sparkline in there. So that concludes this lesson. This lesson concludes the course, the Intermediate Excel course. So I did the lessons a little bit out of order. I did lesson 8, 10, and 9. But this concludes the course. If you watched all 10 lessons and practiced what I did in all 10 lessons, then you should be at an intermediate level in Excel. So the next course I think I'm going to make is going to be an advanced Excel course. So that's going to take a little bit more preparation on my part. So I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to make the course. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break until August. And then in August, I'll start working on the advanced Excel course. So congratulations for completing the course. I hope that you got something out of the course, and I will be communicating with you in the next course.